Yes, here we go. Sportsbet betting insight today. Pauly and Teddy, SBR picks. I'm at Real Sportsbet on Twitter. He's at Teddy_covers. Thursday, August 9th. 12 games tonight, week 1, NFL preseason. We'll go through these rapid fire. Some 4-point move in one game, 2 late games, doubleheader on NFL Network. We'll get to everything you need to know coming up with all these games in the NFL. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. It is Sportsbet. We came back Wednesday, August 1st. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. We go rapid fire. We are live, and then we take it into Low Shack in the Bag coming up at the top of the hour. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. One bad beat. The Rays minus 180. Romo blows it in the ninth. The Orioles get 2. They win 5-4. And the first time since 1983, the Orioles commit 5 errors and win the game. Bad job by Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way Baltimore's winning games right now. Lucky, misplayed contests where they're finding a way at the end. What did we see last night? Blown save. Baltimore gets the win. Tampa, minus 180. They've been a real good bet in recent weeks, but last night if you had the Rays, that was a choke job.
It was a good night for the books and a bad night for the bettors. Most of the moves lost. The Dodgers 155 up to 180. A's win 3-2. Kershaw is yet to beat the A's, but I think it's 4 or 5 career starts. He's got a 1.83 ERA. And the Nats 115 up to 140. Blown out again at home. That's a huge game coming up in a couple hours. If they lose that at home, they lose 3 out of 4 to Atlanta and would fall 6.5 back. Braves beat them again.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the big chalk, Dodgers bet up to minus 180. Nats bet up to minus 140. Seattle's another one. They were bet up to minus 160 yesterday. Lost that game 11-7. And when the favorites get bet up and lose, the books tend to have a good day. That was certainly the situation in yesterday's MLB action.
Yep, Seattle's leaking oil. This is not a good start to this 10-game road trip. Now they go to Houston for 4, and they see Verlander and Cole, and then they go to Oakland for 3. 15 games over 500, but outscored by 29 runs on the season. Marlins plus 120 down to even, lost 7-1. Richards has pitched well, but he doesn't get any run support, and he gave up 3 runs at 5 innings yesterday. Carpenter, don't look now, has 31 home runs and a home run in 5 of his last 6 games. Brewers, Padres under 9 down to 8.5, not even close. 8-4 final, and you figure it out. Tigers, who've been awful on the road. I think they're 5-21 stretch here on the road. Plus 140 down to 115. They were shut out by the Angels 6-0.
Yeah, when you're taking the dogs that are taking a lot of money, sometimes it's a little bit dicey. That was certainly the case last night. You didn't get full value on the Marlins by the first pitch. They were down to even money, really never in the ball game. And of course, Detroit, they get shut out after getting bet 25-cent move in favor of the underdog Tigers. That was not a right side, to put it mildly.
All right, 2 good moves. Diamondbacks 150 up to 190. Corbin throws a gem. They shut out the Phillies. And the Rockies, Pirates under 10.5 down to 10. 4-3 Pirates. Archer 2 runs in 5 innings. Rockies, after they couldn't lose for a long stretch. Tough road trip in St. Louis and Milwaukee, and they lose this series at home. They start a huge 4-game series against the Dodgers tonight.
Yeah, and certainly when you're talking about these mid-August series, we don't want to understate them, but we don't want to overstate them either. Huge series in August are not the same as huge series in September. There's still time for teams to make up for the mistakes that they'll make over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Yes. All right, here we go. Rapid fire, 12 games tonight, NFL Week 1 preseason. We'll start with the Bears and the Bengals. The Bengals are minus 1.5 at home. Some support for the Bears as they have that edge. They've already played a game, and you have Daniel and Bray who are used to Nagy's system as he had him in Kansas City and are used to his offense. I don't think Marvin Lewis really cares about the preseason. So you get Trubisky who's going to play, Daniel and Bray. Bray was okay in the Hall of Fame game as they came in the back door to get the money against the Ravens. You got Dalton, Barkley, Driscoll, and Woodside for the Bengals.
All right, now, over and over today, I'm going to go back to the basic points we made in our 2-parter last week. We talked about betting NFL season, preseason, I should say, what really matters. What really matters for this game, Cincinnati has cluster injuries, and not in a good spot either. They've got cluster injuries in the secondary. You're talking about the starters only going to play a couple of series. All right, that's fine. Well, their number 4, number 5 corners are out. Number 6, 7, and 8 cornerbacks have all been torched all week. Number 9 was just signed. So when you talk about the starters out of the game for the Bengals, you can expect some issues for them in terms of pass defense. That's not necessarily good news for a favorite against a team with a pair of decent backups. That being said, the long-term track record for the team that played in the Hall of Fame games in week 1 is not particularly good. I think that's why we haven't seen more money come on the Chicago Bears. But the nuance of that has changed. I know we're doing quick hitters, and I won't go this long on every game, but the nuance has changed. The Hall of Fame game used to be a Sunday, and then you have to turn around and play on Thursday. Now, the Hall of Fame game was a full week ago, so that short turnaround time isn't the same. Therefore, I'm willing to devalue the long-term track record for the Hall of Fame because it's a very different circumstance in 2018.
Whew. Dolphins and Buccaneers. Dolphins 1.5, 34 the total. Tannehill's going to play. I like the quarterback rotation with Miami. It's Tannehill, Osweiler, Fales, and then Petty to get in there. And there's going to be a lot of Fitzpatrick here as Winston suspended. So Tannehill's finally back after the injury, and Miami 1.5 at home.
Yeah, and, there's a QB battle in Tampa, in theory, between Winston and Fitzpatrick, two guys who need to get their playing time. But we talk about the cluster injuries. We got a cluster injury situation here as well. Tampa's got no tackles, offensive tackles, I should say. They've got 3 tackles out. The third stringer could be in with the first stringer. The third-round pick could be next to him on the offensive line, and that's the starting line. It might get worse by the time Brian Griffin takes the field as the third-string quarterback for Tampa. I would expect the Bucs to have their share of offensive issues in Miami this evening with that beat-up offensive line.
All right, here's the big one. NFL Network, 4 o'clock Pacific. The Browns take on the Giants on the road. A 4-point move in this game. Giants open a 3-point favorite. The Browns are laying 1, 35 the total. Mayfield's going to play a couple quarters. You go from Taylor to Mayfield. Pretty good. It's what we're looking for when we did our preview on a preseason. I get a veteran and a guy who's won games in the NFL as my number 3 with Drew Stanton. Don't know how much Eli we're going to see or Barkley. And then it'll be Webb, Laletta, and Alex Tanney for the Giants. Ton of money on the Browns. And for what it's worth, 0-16 last year regular season, 4-0 straight up in the preseason.
Sure. I mean, the teams that didn't win a game last year have a little bit more to prove in August than teams that did, obviously. And with Cleveland, you talked about it. Tyrod Taylor's getting all the first-team reps in training camp. He's going to start. He's going to play a series or 2 along with the rest of the starters. Mayfield, who's going to get, quote, he will play quite a bit. That's what Hugh Jackson said. The word is 2 quarters. That's not official, obviously. But Mayfield's going to be in this game for an extended stretch. He's been getting reps with the first stringers and with the second stringers, plenty of reps with that second string offense against the Browns starting defense. And of course, with Drew Stanton coming in as a third stringer, that certainly is the type of QB rotation and the type of emphasis on the preseason that we can understand why the betting markets have paid a lot of attention to the Cleveland Browns. A 4-point line move, in my mind, is perfectly validated. You can understand why the money has come on Cleveland. However, the money's already come. If you're trying to make money in the NFL preseason, betting on a team after a 4-point line move, good luck to you. Not a long-term winning strategy.
All right, the Eagles at home against the Steelers. Eagles are 32.5. A ton of money on the under here. This is it opened 35, now down to 32.5. No Foles, no Wentz. It's going to be Sudfeld going for the Eagles. And for the Steelers, Tomlin on a 29-17 under run. And you got Rudolph from Oklahoma State and Landry Jones trying to battle it out to back up Big Ben.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here is that in preseason, we always talk about the QB rotations. Here in Philadelphia, we have no Carson Wentz, no Nick Foles, no problem. It's not a 1-point spread. It's not a 2-point spread. It's a full field goal for the Eagles in this game, despite the fact that their top 2 QBs are not expected to see the field. Now, so that certainly has a lot to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers side of the equation. You see Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs getting most of the snaps tonight. But you talked about Tomlin's track record. The unders long-term, And the Steelers, not so much in August. Every once in a while, we see Tomlin step up and care about a preseason game. I'm not convinced this is that game. Hence, Philly still laying 3, despite the fact there's top 2 QBs will be sitting on the sidelines.
Joe Callahan, baby. Say what you want. The guy's put up preseason numbers, too. He'll get in there after Sudfeld again tonight as well. Doug Peterson, 6-2 straight up in the preseason and 6-2 to the under. Ravens laying 3 at home against the Rams, 36 the total. I love the Rams, the Ravens quarterback rotation. You're going to see Flacco, RG3, Lamar Jackson, and Woodrum. The kid actually was 6 for 6 in the Hall of Fame game as well. At least Jackson, he didn't show me much throwing the ball, but if something happens, a play breaks down, he can just take off and scramble and beat you with his legs as well. Harbaugh has won 9 preseason games in a row, and 27-13 TS going in the Hall of Fame game.
Although Harbaugh failed to cover as a favorite in the last game, and of those 9 preseason games in a row, the Ravens were dogs in 6 of them.
Yeah, if you bet it late,
points very often. That's all I'm going to say. Is that it's a Baltimore situation where the markets clearly see that John Harbaugh has a bet-on track record. We're not seeing Baltimore in the most profitable roles in August anymore. And Harbaugh said this is his week 1. He's not looking like his team got anything accomplished last week. He said they're going to approach it like this is their first preseason contest. That means the starters likely to play only a single series. And oh, by the way, we talk about the backup QB battles that we like to see. We've got a backup QB battle in L.A. Sean Mannion battling Brandon Allen. There's talk that Luis Perez could be in that mix. But it's a situation for the Rams where they need to see what the backups can do. Sometimes you see more downfield passes in the second half of these games. I'm not excited about laying with Baltimore tonight.
Patriots at home against the Redskins. New England's 3, 37.5 the total. Belichick, 57-36 to the over in the preseason. Again, he's gone over 6 in a row, and he scored not even close last year. 31-24, 27-23, 30-28, 40-38. So you see there's some over support here, and for what it's worth, the Redskins on a 16-6 ATS run, and Jay Gruden's been strong week 1 preseason.
He sure has. I mean, it's worth noting when we talk about the Patriots overs last year, for example. That's Garoppolo. And Garoppolo's not there anymore, obviously. In fact, we're going to see a lot of Danny Etling tonight, a kid who didn't get the job done at Purdue, didn't get the job done at LSU. Was he a 7th-round pick? The New England fans will get their chance to rip on Etling the way that LSU fans did last year, though Brian Hoyer likely to see a good sample of first half work tonight. We do have a backup QB battle in D.C., Colt McCoy against Kevin Hogan. One would think McCoy's going to win that job, but certainly they want Hogan to move up. He wasn't particularly impressive in the preseason last year. There's a kid with a little bit of something to prove here in August.
And a backup battle in Green Bay. They're at home against Tennessee. Pick 'em 34.5. Rodgers not expected to play. He was running the scout team the other day. And you got Kaiser and Hundley battling out for the number 2 job. And with Tennessee, I don't know what Vrabel's going to do. Here's your new coach angle. It's strange. A team goes to the playoffs and wins a game, but they cleaned house with the coaching staff.
And I don't blame them. There wasn't a lot to like about the previous coaching staff in Tennessee, except for that they got to the postseason finally. But it wasn't a lot. They got to the postseason. Everything about Tennessee last year in terms of their playoff run, it felt more lucky than good, and that's why their line is an 8-win team this season. You talked about the backup QB job in Green Bay, and yes, it's Huntley versus Kaiser, but it's a different nuance here. This is going to be a 4-game backup battle. No one's going to be announced as the backup QB until probably after the preseason. So for week 1 tonight, what are we going to see? The 4th stringer, Tim Boyle, is expected to get extended second half playing time for Green Bay. That's not a guy I want my money on in a pick 'em price ball game.
Yep, you got the Saints and Jags as well coming up at 4 o'clock Pacific. I don't have much on that game. That's intriguing because both teams have Super Bowl expectations after great years they had last year. Chiefs 2.5 at home against Houston, 34 the total. I like both QB rotations here. You have Watson expected to play. He's back for the Texans. Then you have Whedon, Joe Webb. You got Stephen Morris as well. And with the Chiefs, Mahomes, who's thrown a ton of interceptions, in the practice, backed up by Henne and McGloin.
Yeah, I mean, this is your ultimate bet on backup QBs. There's not a single guy that I'm going to talk about that you'd want as your starter in the regular season. Not a one of them. You want Brandon Weeden? God, no. You want Joe Webb? Not a chance. You want Chad Henne? No. Matt McGloin? No. None of these guys can start an NFL game. In August, every one of them is a bet on QB, and that's the thing to understand. When you have veteran quarterbacks going up against second and third string defenders, there's an edge there. And there'll be an edge for, I think, both of these offenses after halftime here. You're looking for a high-scoring game tonight. This one might be one to pay attention to. KC and Houston. The Chiefs in general look like a high-scoring team to me in 2018. I'm expecting to play a lot of KC games over the total.
And the two late games that we touched on yesterday here on SportsBet, Pauly and Teddy, SBR picks, you're seeing a little support for the Colts. Luck's supposed to play the first quarter. New coach, a new angle with Frank Reich. Brand new schemes on both sides of the ball for the Colts. But you go against Pete Carroll, 34-14-1 ATS in the preseason. Teddy, it's not the same, though. After Russell Wilson, it's nothing. A guy, Austin Davis, and then a guy I never heard of. I think Dartmouth, whoever, Alex McGough or McGuff, whoever this guy is. So we don't have strong backups behind Russell Wilson in Seattle. And then you got Indy here. Pretty good, though. You go to Brissett to back up Luck, and Brissett's always done well in the preseason.
Yeah, Brad Kaya, the third stringer for Indianapolis. And certainly, we've seen a fair bit of market support. We talk about for Indy as a dog, despite that long-term track record for Pete Carroll. You talked about the two guys going, Austin Davis and Alex McGough. McGough was someone who's been bouncing around camps. He's not completely hopeless, and he's also a guy that can run. He can scramble out of the pocket. But on your list of bet on QBs, I wouldn't put Davis and McCall at or near the top of my list. That's a big part of the reason why, despite Pete Carroll's incredible track record, and when you look at Indy's long-term track record, it's a disaster in the preseason. You look at them over 15 years or 20 years, you think back to the Dungy and Caldwell eras when they didn't care. This isn't those eras anymore for the Colts. I'm not surprised at all that we've seen Indianapolis look like a very popular bet early on Thursday. We've seen a ton of sharp money coming on the Colts.
And Carroll's also cashed 6 straight tickets in the preseason as well. And the other game, the Cowboys and the 49ers, 7 o'clock Pacific on NFL Network. And they're taking some under money there. That's a hideous quarterback rotation with the Niners after Garoppolo too. You got Beathard and some others. So this is, Cooper Rush with the Cowboys. Not much there once you get to these backups. You probably won't see a touchdown in the second half.
Yeah, and certainly this is the game that we talked about yesterday on SportsBet. Yep. You can find those clips archived at sportsbookreview.com.
Money time, play of the day. What do you want to do? Let's go back to that Bears game against the Bengals. You take it away.
Sure. I mean, look, we're looking for situations where teams have cluster injuries. You want to have cluster injuries? You become a bet against team in August. Offensive line's great. Secondary's great. Here's Chicago. They want to work on their downfield passing game. Here's Cincy with injuries in that secondary where don't even know who's going to be on the field if they're going to be capable in the second half of this ball game. Bears still a dog. Count me in. Game number 253. The Chicago Bears plus 1.5. Don't take them on the money line. Take them plus 1.5. As we talked about with 2-point conversions at the end of the ball game. Bears plus 1.5. That's our play of the day.
Great point. Well done. SportsBet, betting inside today. Pauly and Teddy at Real SportsBet on Twitter at Teddy_covers. Tomorrow, Falcons and the Jets. Atlanta went 0-4 straight up in the preseason last year. Lions and the Raiders. Unfrozen Caveman Lawyers back with Oakland. That's a doubleheader on NFL Network. Then we got Minnesota and Denver and the Chargers and Cardinals on Saturday. That's it. We're back tomorrow. Follow us on Twitter. Always check out the show as well. All the betting news you need to know in less than 20 minutes. We'll recap everything with all the major moves on the show tomorrow and kick around the baseball card as well. Low Shack and the Bag coming up next. SportsBet, betting inside today, SBRpicks.com. Thanks to the staff. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Tiger Woods, disaster.